Yeah, me and my dad always love to have football talks, even when me and Josh aren't doing talks on No Buts About It. We always in that in between time whenever we both get off of work. So it's always nice to be able to discuss some football and finally be able to use the platform here. So when it comes to football this week, we had a lot of crazy things happen. But first and foremost, since I am a Steelers fan, as many of you know, that would mean my dad is also a Steelers fan. Well, actually,
Yep.
I can't really assume that because some
No, you
parents
can
and
assume that.
sons, but in this case, it can be assumed that me and my dad both share the same love for the Steelers. And man, what a terrible game it was for Pittsburgh Steelers fans and just for the Steelers in general. I mean, obviously, I think a lot of people underestimated how good CJ Stroud is. I
Yes.
think he's making some of these wide receivers like Nico Collins and some of these wide receivers I had never really had in any wide receiver discussion all of a sudden just start like making them look good and then obviously like just destroying the Steelers. And it wasn't even a really good win. It was like, I mean, it was a good
Well,
win, but like it was a 30-6 win. It was not a good look for the Steelers. And I don't know. What did you think about it? What did you think about it? Because I know
well,
you have a lot of things you want to say.
I thought our defense was looked tired. I mean, again, we've had 3 games in a row. 2 games we played really well. Um, the it looks like that the Houston had a great offensive plan. I mean, a lot of screens. They were letting them come right at CJ Stroud and just throw the ball right over their head. I mean, they had a lot of great ideas, and they were running the ball. Again, the Steelers are probably the worst team out there right now against the rush in the NFL. I mean, you can't be a dominant defense if you're going to not be able to stop the run. So I think that was a major thing. And then you had the offense doing exactly what the offense has done in the last probably 3 weeks of the season. This is week 4. They're not doing nothing, 3 and out, and then all of a sudden you punt the ball and you give them another chance. It was 16. It was 16 nothing, and it probably could have been easily probably 21, 20, 24 nothing at the half. I mean, our defense kept them from scoring touchdowns, but it was just terrible. It was a bad game, and um, I blame a lot on the offense and defensive coordinators because I think they should have been able to come up with a better game plan. And if they saw what was going on, they should have adjusted. And I don't really know if they ever really adjusted enough to get what they wanted to go on. So
Yeah, I mean it's interesting because obviously Mike Tomlin last week or 2 weeks ago had mentioned that they had elevated Matt Canada in more of like a more hands-on role to be working more with Kenny Pickett, and then obviously we had the Raiders game where there looked to be at least some sort of spark in the offense, but obviously that has also been known to have been a flaw in saying that the offense had a spark because of the Raiders defense not being the greatest defense in the
yes,
world. So the Steelers were made to look really good on that offense. But when it comes to, going into this week after winning against the Raiders, a lot of Steelers fans, and I know I expected it myself. I expected it to be a good game for the Steelers, but they ended up just falling very, very, very short of my expectations. I mean, Kenny Pickett did not do good. Matt Canada called a 4th and 1 play that was in shotgun formation, which got Kenny Pickett hurt, who is probably not going to play this week against Baltimore, where we're going to end up having super epic Money Mitch for the Pittsburgh Steelers starting at Acrisure Stadium against the Baltimore Ravens. So, and that is just one of many injuries that we will cover throughout this show. But yeah, I mean, so when it comes to the coaching and everything like that, I know that it was just a terrible game. Steelers only put up 6 points. We allowed 30. Not a good look. I
no,
like after coming off of 2 wins in a row, going up against Houston with CJ Stroud being a rookie quarterback. So obviously, there's been a lot of talk with these coaches, and I know that you're very passionate about the different coachings that the Steelers have had over in the past. What do you think of this coaching staff, and what would you do differently?
well, I think this coaching staff. I mean, even in the defense, I'm not really as impressed with the defensive coordinator as it was in the past. I think he's okay. But I think the secondary is weak. I think we have a weak secondary. I think that I think they went out and tried to get some free agents that they thought were going to help, but a lot of them were older. Patrick Peterson is not the Patrick Peterson of 5, even 10 years ago. They got some young play. They got some young players, but yet they're not ready to play yet. So, and then your secondary, you have some safeties that you thought were going to do well, and they're not. Um, so, um, and I think you can see clearly that Cam Hayward is hurt. With him being hurt, you can see the line just not being able to stop the run. I still think our inside linebackers, which I thought were going to be an improvement this year, is better than what they were last year, but they're nowhere near what they need to be. They're not stopping the run in any way. They're not getting in there to stop those guys from running. I think they need to. I think one of the things, I know it's kind of crazy, but I think I would put in that rookie, Mark, or not rookie, but he's a second year guy, Mark Robinson. I think give him a chance. I mean, you got a young guy in there, give him a chance. Why not? I mean, you have some veteran guys, let him come in there a little bit more. I don't see them doing that. I think sometimes you need to take a chance and bring in some young people to see what you can get. I mean, it can help. I think you go also on the offensive line. I think we had Daniel Moore, I think his name is, or um,
Yeah, it's
the
something like that.
something like that. Anyway, Moore, he's been the worst offensive tackle in the whole NFL by PFFA
Mm.
grade. So if you have the worst tackle, don't you think you should be doing something about it? And what do? They have a first round draft pick sitting on their bench. They're saying, well, he's not ready. Well, how do you make yourself ready if you don't ever put, the guy in there? So I mean, he's injured this week. So I think that they're going to be bringing in, they'll probably be bringing in him, Broderick Jones now for the starting. You also Fryermuth, as we'll be talking about, but he's injured. So you're going to be using that other Darnell Washington. So you have some people that are coming in that are rookies. You need to bring them in and see how they do. I mean, that's all I can say is because I don't think you should have the worst tackle in the NFL. I mean, you're
Yeah.
not going to be able to protect your franchise quarterback or run the ball if you have the worst tackles. Um, and again, the other one is Okafor is a little bit better, but he's still like 85 out of like 92 possible. So he's not like that good. So you really need to figure out what you got. And I think those would be some of the changes I would make on both sides is get some of these younger guys in there and see what they can do. Because right now, some of these veterans just aren't cutting it. And then you can't rely on Highsmith um, and Watt to do everything. You just can't. I mean, all they got to do is double cover them and hope that nobody else that the other guys don't make a play. So that's what my biggest thought is on some of the things I would do. I mean, I think Matt Canada again doesn't call the right plays. I heard today on the radio that on the 4th and 1, it was Mike Tomlin's call for that play. He wanted the pass play instead of the run play. Um, but I don't know that for sure. But this is what some people on the Pittsburgh radio were saying today. And if that's true, it's like, why would Again, you injured your quarterback and everything, and you're not even taking responsibility. But that's neither here nor there. I do think that they need to improve on what they're doing and how they're doing it, and I think they got to figure out something. I mean, go back to the old days and stick a fullback back there. See what happens. I mean, you got to try something because right now, what's working, what it is, isn't working. So
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's been a lot of talk within the Steelers nation just calling for Matt Canada to get fired. At this point, I feel like it would be the most logical explanation on why the offense is doing so bad would be Matt Canada per se. But there's been a lot of call for it. Obviously, there's been also calls for just cleaning house. Would you necessarily clean house, or would you just kind of, wait it out and just see what happens? Because I mean, at this point, in my opinion, I think Matt Canada should be done by now. I mean, Mike Tomlin and defense coordinator, other positions, other coordinators should just maybe just wait a little bit before we clean house. But this offense coordinating is not working. I don't know what you think about that, but
I think they definitely should clean house with the offensive coordinator. But my thought is, I think what they need to do is go outside the organization. The Steelers, for whatever reason, always wants to bring in from within. We're gonna, promote within. Well, you know what? Sometimes promoting within doesn't always mean what you're going to get. You're not going to get the best offensive coordinator. There are some really good offensive coordinators out there that can work with young players. Bring them in, see what they can do. You know, you had like we've had when we back when Ben was young, we had, when he was a rookie, we had Bruce Arians who was really good with younger players. You know, you can bring in an offensive coordinator that is good with young quarterbacks.
Mhm.
Matt Canada might be a great, offense coordinator somewhere. I doubt it, but I mean, he could be if he had maybe a veteran player or somebody that was middle of the road. Maybe he would do well, but I don't see it. But my point being is that you can get somebody that's a young player, like a coach that could work well with a young player, especially if you got somebody you want to make as your franchise quarterback. You should be going for his strengths, figuring out what his strengths are. I mean, that's what makes a good offense coordinator. Not just going, okay, these are my plays and you're going to run them. You got to figure out what's best for the players and make it best for everybody to run it. Um, and the same with the defense. I think they just need to figure out what they can do to make it better. I mean, if the defensive line isn't what it is, then some of our draft picks we got are really not doing what they were supposed to. So I don't know what you can do about that, but you have your players that that you drafted in your second and third rounds that you should be coming up now because Cam Hayward is again in his 12th year. How much longer are you going to have him? So I don't know. I think there's a lot of stuff they need to make some changes on. I'm just not sure what is the exact answer, but I think they need to start by just making some tweaks here and there and see what happens. So
All right. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, there was even a thing, and I'm not going to go into it too much because it was seen on the Pat McAfee show. They talked about it on there. So if you guys want to go watch it and look at the list about Mike Tomlin, it was only posted a couple of hours ago as of this recording. So, and it just talks about from what Mike Tomlin has done from 2007 until 2020. And it's really not that pretty. I don't know if it's necessarily Mike Tomlin's fault, but it could be. In this case, I still will blame Matt Canada for this. And then from there on, if this next offensive coordinator that we potentially get isn't getting the offensive numbers, then maybe it is Tomlin's problem or maybe it's a Kenny Pickett problem. But I feel like first things first is just working on getting a new offensive coordinator, which we probably won't see this season unless the offense continues to put up 3 and 6 points for the next 3 weeks. So, which is possible. I mean, if we only put up six against Houston, I mean, I guess anything's possible. But when it comes to teams only putting up field goal numbers,